to Jason's bachelor party in Amsterdam, and that was a whole nother fun time, man. That was like ridiculous.
Oh, that's right. Artie went, right? But Artie went and then was gone and then showed up back for the plane.
Yeah. So that's the day Teddy and Artie fought. Remember the day?
Right, yeah. And then he got on the plane.
It's funny. Howard has a weird premonition about everything. So that morning, Artie's all excited, and he's like, oh, man, we're going to Amsterdam today. This is going to be great. You know, like, I can't wait. We're going for the bachelor party. And Howard just, like, as a side thing says, yeah, I don't know. You might not make it, you know, like as a goof. And then, like, an hour later, him and he's going after Teddy, and it was just, so shit ends, you know, it's going to happen. So I wasn't really pissed off. I was just kind of like, the only thing I was kind of mad at is that I found out like everybody else on the air. That was the weird thing. It was like, we didn't know what was going to happen. We're like, Doug, what's happening? He's like, I don't know. We don't know. Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, Howard's like, yeah, we're not going to do the Howard TV anymore. It's done. And we're like, we all turned around and looked at Doug like, what? And he goes, this is the first I'm hearing about it.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch, sponsored by Masses Restaurants in St. Louis. There's 5 locations, stlmasses.com. It's Brian Phelan, everybody. Hello, Brian.
Greg's a good man. That's awesome.
I have talked.
Nice to meet you.
I will tell you, I have contacted Greg, and Greg, I think after, hopefully he has something going on, but maybe in the next couple of weeks, we'll get to see if he ever did get to have some fun with Robin. I bet you know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but yeah, I'd like to know that too.
So let's start with what are you up to now? What are you doing? We all know that kind of the Howard TV model went away a few years back. So you were there a long time. So what are you doing right now?
Right now, I'm freelancing. I'm only right now at the Yankees. I do the in-house at the Yankees. So if you're at the game and you're watching the Jumbotron, I'm putting everything up on the Jumbotron.
Just how did you end up working for, it was E! At the time, I think, back in 02, 03 is when you showed up, right? And how did you get the job?
So what happened was I was working for a production company back in the 90s, and I got in touch with Scott Einziger, who was the greatest EP going, and he was doing side project for Howard. This was before E! And when Howard ran for governor, and he did his New Year's Eve special, and anything he wanted to videotape, he would get Scott, and Scott would hire my company, and we'd go out and we'd shoot whatever. And I got to, meet him and hang out with him and know him, and he's a great guy. And when the E! Show started, I had another job, so I didn't get the job with E! I didn't even apply for it. I just, was doing something else. And when that job went away, I called Scott and I said, listen, do you mind, you got anything available? And he said, yeah, there's a camera guy, our camera guy's leaving. If you want, try out. And I tried out and I got it. So I started in 97, and I did 8 years with E! And I did 8 years with In Demand.
So you went from I guess the studio got bigger at K-Rock, and then obviously way bigger at Sirius. But
so what happened was at K-Rock, there was 2 studios. There was one K-Rock, which was a real small studio. The first 3 years at E! Was the original K-Rock, which was at 600 Madison. I was only there for like a month, maybe, not even, maybe like a week. And then that winter break happened, and then we came back and they built a new studio, which was the new K-Rock on 57th Street. And I started from day one there. And I did the whole time there. And then they had offsetting contracts between K-Rock, between radio and TV. So with 6 months left in his radio contract, and he was already going to Sirius, the E! Contract was up, and he wasn't bringing E! to, satellites. So we parted ways in June, and then for 6 months I kind of just freelanced around, and then nice enough, he hired us back, and we all got our jobs back at Howard TV.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I remember that time because it was like, oh man, I want to see these last shows. That's the worst part. Everybody wanted to see those last 6 months.
It was very weird because I remember I'm big into the music parts of the show. I love the music acts and everything, and he had Stevie Wonder on, and I was like, wow, a living legend, and we weren't there to tape it, and I was so bummed, but it was, it's all good.
So, and we all know that the studio shot is just robotic cameras. Did you run all of them, or or is one guy on one camera?
At E, I ran all the cameras. There was, I think, 7 cameras, and then there was one on a track that went back and forth. I had a foot pedal, so I'd be running around, I had 2 controllers, and I was going back and forth. But then when we went to HowardTv, they got more money, and they hired a second robotics guy, and he did half the cameras, and I did the other half when we were at HowardTv.
I know DePace was
a learning experience.
I was going to say, and DePace was the director, and I just remember a lot of times Howard being mad about his angle. How often did you have to go Did you tinker? Did Scott tinker? Or what was that like? No, when you hear, hey, don't shoot me for this. Because that's a funny, it's the only thing you can really remember Howard being kind of big-time star-ish, like Barbara Streisand. Oh, you shoot me this way. I don't want my nose out there.
Right, absolutely. When we were there at the K-Rock studios, there was tweaking here and there, and until it was about maybe a month or 2 that we got it right, that he was very happy with everything, and it was settled down. And then when we went to satellite, it was different. Even though the angles were kind of the same, it was just the studio was bigger and it was a different setup. So it took a little bit longer to get that right. So every day we'd be moving the camera over an inch this way, like that. And, I think it took about a month and a half or whatever to get that settled down, and he was happy with that. And it was all good, But yeah, we tinkered a lot in the beginning, but then after that, the cameras were pretty much set, and it was basically follow the action.
Yeah, and so tell me about that, following the action. I mean, there's a lot of people in the room at times, especially at Sirius. You got to get Fred and Robin and Artie and Benji, and you got everybody.
Yeah, for the most part, Robin was constantly stayed still. She was pretty much the best at it. Fred would move around. He's grabbing carts, doing this and that. Howard was like, here and there, so you kind of tweak him. It was basically the guests. Any guests that came in, they're on the couch. Then they get up and they run across, and especially at Sirius, it was such a big studio. It was such a bigger studio. They'd be running across the thing. So I got to grab them and follow them. And then like, oh, this guy moves, so I got to jump on this camera and tweak that back. And, it was a little hectic at times, but it was all fun. It was all good, working all the cameras, everything worked out. I might have missed a couple shots here or there, but really not too much. I didn't miss too much over my years. I did pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I look forward, hopefully, to getting Scott DePace here also to talk about directing the show, because I'm interested in that too. Was there a point? I mean, you're a fan of the show. I think that's what I saw. You did enjoy the before. Was there a point when you're like, all right, this is a job, or was it always fun that you get to come in and enjoy kind of that atmosphere?
It was always fun. It was like, yes, it was a job, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and going to, bed at, 10 or whatever, 11, sometimes not at all, just going right back. That was the biggest part of the job, was waking up. I mean, I remember when I first got the job, I came home, it was winter time. It was, the start of January. And I went home and I passed out, and I woke up and it was like 5:30, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm late. And I jump up and I take a shower, and I'm like, jump out of the shower, and my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm late for work. She's like, it's 5:30 in the afternoon, dude. And I'm like, holy shit, like I thought I slept through the whole night and I missed work. I was like, that was the biggest, problem, was like, oh my God, I'm going to wake up late. I'm going to miss, I'm going to miss it. And it just, it all worked out. It was good. It was fun. And it was really never a job other than, waking up.
You also then obviously run those robo cameras, but I think you went on a lot of shoots, right? Because then first of all, E was doing some stuff outside, but tell me about some of those most fun things you got to go out and shoot.
So one of the first things we did for me, I did, like I said, I was working with, with Scott. We did the Governor's Run. That was a great time. And the New Year's Eve special was fun. But one of the first shoots that I did was the Henry Hill Death Tour, where he drove us around Queens and told us where they killed and buried everybody. And I started talking to him in the limo, and I was like, Henry, how much of that movie was true? And he's like, 99%. And I go, really? I go, what wasn't true? He goes, well, really, in the movie, all the coke was really heroin. So I was like, wow, that's pretty fucking crazy. I go, what else? And he goes, nothing, So I was doing audio, so I had him mic'd up. And as we passed this one building, he leans over to his girlfriend. He's like, yeah, I shot a guy in that building. And she's like, what? And he goes, yeah, I shot a guy in that building. And I go, she goes, I thought you never killed anybody. And he goes, I didn't. And looks at me and goes, ha, 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 ha. We just Henry Hill laugh. And I'm like, holy shit, that's the other part of the movie. If you ever watch the movie, he never kills anybody in that movie. But goddamn it, that guy killed people, you know? So I was like, holy shit, Henry, you're a fucking killer. But that was pretty cool. That was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorites.
I might try to stir your memory, but I think everyone kind of became aware of you. I don't know if you were on the Playboy Mansion ones. If you actually showed that. But the Vegas show with you and Artie basically out drinking each other, and it became just a complete mess, but great television. Tell me about being out in Vegas.
I did a drunk show. We did a drinking show at MTV back in '99. And actually, Artie wasn't on the show yet, but we did a drinking show. And that's kind of funny, too, because that's the power of the show. Like, I did that one show. And when we did go to Vegas and L.A., we went to a club or the Sky Bar in L.A., and this guy comes walking in, and everybody's like, oh, that's the guy from 90210. You know, he was like Vincent Young. He was a secondary character. And we were all standing around, and he was getting introduced to all of us. And he actually recognized me. He's like, Brian Phelan, you drunk cam, Jimmy, drunk cam's here, holy shit. And that's when I was like, dude, that show was 2 years ago. And this guy recognizes me from that. Like, wow, that's a powerful thing. That, like, from 2 years ago, that guy remembered that show and knew who I was. And that's when I was like, wow, this show, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
I was going to ask that, too. So, I mean, you're just a camera guy. I don't want to say you're just a camera guy, but you're just a camera guy. But then, again, I know who you are. A lot of people, even as I've done these, go, oh, where's Brian? What's Brian? Everyone remember. Because, you know, Howard, was that fun for you to go in and be part of the show and have Howard talk to you and give you, you know, have some stories to tell?
It was, you know, listen, my move was, I realized if you stayed in the show and in the studio too long, that's when you ended up getting beat up. So I would run in and say what I had to say and get out. And I was never really bashed. You know, I never got beat up on the show. And everybody's like, Howard loves you, blah, 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 but, you know, you're the greatest. And I'm like, yeah, you know, and I'm like, I don't get beat up because if you stay too long in the studio, you're going to get beat up. So I would run in and out. But it was funny because, shit, I just lost my train of thought. Sorry.
It was funny, whatever it was.
Yeah, no, it was just good. It was a good time, and you know, I enjoyed being on the show and doing what I had to do. And like I said, I wasn't the most popular guy, but people know who I am, and that's the funny thing. To this day, I'll be somewhere out and someone will be like, "Holy shit, Brian Phelan, how are you?" You know, and I'm like, "Wow, that's great," you know.
The Vegas thing I want to go back to because it was, again, you and Artie having, how much fun did you guys have? Do you even remember it? And it was probably the first time we really saw Artie get out of control, and everyone just thought it was kind of alcohol.
Artie was, we did the one show where Artie had he drank his ass off, and he actually blacked out in the middle of the show and woke up, like, you know, out of his blackout. He was up, and he was, you know, like hours later talking to Henry Hill in the casino. But what happened in between was he was supposed to make an appearance at a strip club. And I remember Gary was like, I'll do the appearance tonight. You take my appearance tomorrow night. And he's like, no, I'm going. So it was like 5 PM. And his appearance wasn't until like 7 at night. So he jumps in a limo and there was nobody else with them except me. So I jump in the limo with him and I'm like kind of babysitting him. And it was like crazy. He's running around the bar and the strip club, and he's like, it was like out of hand. He was out of his mind. And I actually called Ronnie, and I was like, Ronnie, you know, can you get down here because Artie's out of hand. I don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. And he's like, yeah. He goes, I'll send him. We had another security guy. He's like, I'll send him. I'm like, okay. So I'm waiting for this other security guy to come, and sure enough, Ronnie shows up with Howard and Beth, and I was just like, oh, shit, the boss is here, you know? And Artie kind of calmed down once that happened, but he was still in his blackout. Like I said, he didn't realize he was in a blackout until he woke up talking to Henry Hill back at the casino. So he had fun. We all had fun. It was a great time. I mean, Artie, I love him. Heart of gold. I mean, we went to the strip club, and the guy handed me $1,000 in funny money. He was just like, yeah, have fun. And I'm like, holy shit, wow, Artie, you're the man. Oh, fucking, this is great.
You two, you two seem like kindred spirits. But But I was curious because on the air, everyone was having these debates as we got into the later 08, 09. Is Artie sick? What's his problem? You were kind of friendly with him, right? And did you? What was the?
We knew there was something up, but I didn't know it was heroin. You know, I knew he was doing something. He was on something, but who? You know, like we didn't know. And you know, we all cared about him, and we were all like, you know, Artie, you all right? You know, you're right. He's like, yeah. And then one time on the air, he went on the air, and he said that I knew what he was doing. I knew he was, you know, taking drugs or whatever. Which I mean, I knew he was on something, but I didn't know it was heroin, like I said. And I was just saying, hey, man, are you okay? You know, just like looking out for him as a friend, not as, you know, like, you know, a babysitter or anything. I just wanted to, you know, make sure he was okay. And he was like, yeah, Brian, you know, he goes, I just told him I was tired from a show. And, you know, he didn't believe me and everything. But like I said, I didn't know. We were watching him, like, towards the end, it was weird because he'd be fine, you know, and then we'd take a commercial break and then he'd be different, you know. And we're like, what the fuck just happened? You know, like, how did that all happened? And then we learned later what happened. You know, he was getting shit sent to him, and you know, at work, and it was bad news. But Artie's a great guy, man. I love him, and I haven't heard from him in a while. I saw him about about 6 months ago. I saw him at a comedy show, and he looked great. He was, you know, fresh out of rehab and everything, and he started up again. But you know, he kind of just went away again, and you know, like I don't stay in touch with him. Every time I have a number on him, it's changed within a month. So. You know, I mean, I wish the best for him. You know, I love him, and he knows I love him. But you know, he's just, you know, he's got his demons, and he's trying to get through them.
From the people I've talked to, getting the Artie update, it sounds like he's okay, but there's no one wants to talk about what he's doing. So hopefully he comes back out, we see him again, and his nose is fixed and his hair.
That'd be great. I love him, man. The guy, like I said, he's got a heart of gold. He was the coolest, nicest guy to everybody, you know. And he opened up everything. He opened up his house. He opened up his wallet. He opened up everything for you. It was great. Good man. Good man.
Let's hope he gets better. You mentioned your Henry Hill shoot. I'm just curious if you have a couple others that come to mind, because again, this is one of the greatest gigs in all of TV/radio. Plus the weird part about it. Again, if you don't have one, we can move on. But.
There's so many. I mean, when I first started the show, there was craziness of like, just like one of the first things we did. This girl came in and she wanted to shoot Jack Daniels out of a vagina into her husband's mouth, and technically we were trying to set up the whole thing, and we had a headset with a microphone, and we taped a camera to it so we could get the full shot of it coming out. And I'm just like, this is insane. Like, what the fuck? You know, like, this show is crazy. And then Benji was always good for some antics. We did a thing in the park where this guy wrote a book on how to pick up women. So we did this field shoot. We're in the park. We got these hidden cameras everywhere. And somebody, like, thought he was creepy and called the cops on him. So the cops walk up on him, and the first thing he says is like, "Don't beat me up," you know. Like the cops are like, "What are you talking about? We don't want to beat you up." So that was kind of funny, just his antics. And Steve Martin came in, and it was Gary's birthday, so they all went out to lunch for Gary's birthday, and there was nobody to. He wanted a tour of the studio, and there was nobody there to give him a tour except me. And he's like one of my favorite comedians ever. So I was like, wow, I'm fucking giving Steve Martin a tour of the Howard studio. This is pretty cool, you know? And then, of course, Gary found out the next day. He's like, shit, what the fuck did I go out? You know, I'm never here. And he shows up, you know? And I was like, yeah, you know.
Did he ever come in? I don't remember him ever actually coming in for a show, though, right? I think he called in, right? But maybe.
He never came in on the show when I was there. We interviewed... we saw him on the red carpet a couple times. Senator John interviewed him a few times on the red carpet. But Howard never did an interview with, at least when I was there. I don't know, maybe afterwards, really don't know. I didn't really catch the show afterwards too much because I had another job and it was at the same time and I couldn't listen. And I know it's on Sirius or whatever. And I would watch, you know, who came in and, you know, maybe go back and listen to an interview here and there. But once I left the show, I didn't really listen to it that much. I listened to it like, you know, every once in a while. The Ronnie roast was really good. That was a good show that they did a couple of years ago. But my favorite thing also was the musical performances, you know. That was my thing. I love that, man. Metallica came in, Joe Walsh, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith. Aerosmith came in with Joe Perry and a guy doing a beatbox, and they played Pink, and it was unbelievable, man. It was really such a great performance.
Yeah.
Who else? Pono for Pyros came in, and same thing. The guy had a clarinet, a guy had a bottle with a rock, and they sang, and a guitar, and they sang Porpoisehead, which was another great performance, man. It was just, that was kind of cool. Those live performances, I dug that the best on the show. That was my favorite.
And as I think back too, like Howard, I mean, now he's doing Lady Gaga and some of these other people, Katy Perry and his style. But back then it was 90s rock, 2000 rock, classic rock. Yeah. He was into all that. It was cool. But you're right. Like now it's hard to listen to some of those, like Harry Styles coming. It's not going to be something I watch. You had fun with him and Howard in New Orleans, right? He did like the NAPD.
Yeah, New Orleans was a great time. We that's when I really got to hang out with Howard. I was there, I don't know, a couple of years I was there, but I never really hung out with him. And I happened to see a friend of mine on the plane down, and I was known as the party guy. So I met my friend, and we were on. He sat me in first class, and we just started drinking. And I drank so much, I had like an anxiety attack on the plane, and I had to run to the bathroom, and the drink cart was in the way. And as I was running to the bathroom, I went to go around the drink cart, and I kind of passed out for like 2 seconds on the drink cart. And I like got up, and I ran to the bathroom, and I was like, oh my God, what the hell, you know? And Howard found out about that, and he just thought it was hysterical. So we did a dinner that night, and we started drinking, and we went to this other after party, and we're right on Bourbon Street. And I'm like, I've been to New Orleans. I went to Mardi Gras, so I'm telling Howard about it. I'm like, listen, man, you get these beads and you throw them down to the women, and they show their tits, and it's fucking great. So he's like, really? He's like, get some beads. So Vinny Favale, we started the CBS show. That's why we were there. We were trying to sell the CBS show. And sure enough, man, Howard goes out on the balcony. And it wasn't Mardi Gras. It was like a couple months later. And there was like maybe 25 people on the street. And we started throwing beads. And within 10 minutes, man, there was hundreds of people down below. Just like, it was jam-packed. Crazy amount of people, like a Mardi Gras. And I was like, man, this is awesome, you know? And then it turns out we went back to K-Rock, you know, and Howard's like, yeah, Mel Coleman, who was running the company, got a bill for $8,000 in beads. We went through that night, which was very funny.
I mean, I know you obviously came on the show, you partied with him. First of all, he couldn't do that now without that being on TMZ and being out on every piece of Twitter.
Yeah, true. True.
But I was going to say, I mean, do you have a number for him where you can text him, or is it pretty much that was where I worked and now, you know?
No, he actually, he's nice enough. He sends me a gift every Christmas, and on my birthday, he'll send me an email. Happy birthday, and I'll send him an email on his birthday, and that's pretty much it. I emailed him. My favorite band is the Black Crowes, and when they were on, Ronnie texted me. He's like, put the radio on, and I was like, okay, and I was like, holy shit, the Black Crowes are getting back together. So I emailed him that night, and I'm like, dude, that was awesome. You know, great interview, and that was pretty much it. And he just got back to me. He's like, yeah, you know, let's hope they stay together before, you know, make sure this concert happens. And I'm like, yeah, I would love that. And sure enough, I was supposed to see him in July, and COVID knocked them right out, so I didn't get to see him. But
August.
That's it. I mean, talk to him like twice a year, and that's it. You know, just by email.
Yeah, they were supposed to be in St. Louis August 23rd. Really pissed me off because I was excited. Like, there's an album I want to hear the whole album. There's not many albums when the band comes through and says, "Hey, we're playing our whole for." That one I wanted to see. So hopefully, and I even contacted after hearing Howard's interview. I was like, I have a million now questions for Chris and Rich Robinson myself. So I contacted their people. Maybe, you never know, they might be joining on this podcast someday.
Are you a big fan of the Black Crowes?
I love them. When I was a kid, my first concert was Aerosmith, and Black Crowes opened for him. It was 1990. Right. And I was like, who the hell are these guys? Yeah, I was like, who are these guys?
The first time I saw them was 92. I knew their music, but I saw them live in 92, and I'm like, these guys are great. But did you read the book, How to Handle, by Steve Gorman, the drummer? Awesome book, bro. You got to read it. It's great. I mean, you can't put it down. It's so good. It tells so many good stories. I suggest you get it when you get a chance.
Brian Phelan's book picks. Well, I will do that. I love band books, and I know a lot of the Black Crowes story, but yeah, that's they are one of my all-time favorite bands, and I was pissed, man, because that was August 23rd. They were supposed to be here, so that was just a week ago. I was curious. So we were talking a little bit about Scott DePace. What would happen when he would be called in and he'd get into an argument? I love his arguments with Jason Kaplan. I mean, they're hysterical. Yeah. How hard was it for him? How hard was it for to come back and work? Because that's the thing. You go, like you said, don't stand too long, which Scott pretty much would do.
Everybody has their fights and has their issues when they come out. It was basically back to normal. Sometimes you get ridden in the control room. They make fun of whoever was in there, busting their balls more. Kind of just put fuel on the fire. But for the most part, he hated Jason. He just was like, he did not like Jason at all. So, he did his thing and Jason did his thing, and that's it was like oil and water, those two.
Who did like Jason besides Will? Really?
I'm just Jason's guy. We went to Jason's bachelor party in Amsterdam, and that was a whole nother fun time, man. That was like ridiculous.
Oh, that's right. Artie went, right? But Artie went and then was gone and then showed up back for the plane.
Yeah. So that's the day Teddy and Artie fought. Remember the day?
Right, yeah. And then he got on the plane.
It's funny. Howard has a weird premonition about everything. So that morning, Artie's all excited, and he's like, oh, man, we're going to Amsterdam today. This is going to be great. I can't wait. We're going for the bachelor party. And Howard just, like, as a side thing says, yeah, I don't know. You might not make it, like as a goof. And then, like, an hour later, him and he's going after Teddy, and it was just chaos. And we didn't know he was going to go. And we went, and we had 15 guys with us. And me, Brentano, Jason, my brother, and another guy went to see the Black Crowes. They happened to be playing there. So we were like, this is awesome. So we go to see the Black Crowes. There was 3 phones. We had 3 cell phones between us because it was international. And it was the weirdest thing because we all got broken up. And we come back after the show, and I had lost my brother and Jason and those guys at the show. All of a sudden, I turn around, and they're gone. So I've got a good sense of direction, and I make it back to Amsterdam because it was out of town. We had to take a train. And what's cool about Amsterdam is they have these outdoor urinals. They look like road cones, giant road cones, but you go up and you piss in them. It's unbelievable. So I get off the train, and I got to go to the bathroom. So I go and take a pee, and sure enough, like 3 other guys that were with us come right up, and they start peeing too with me. And I'm like, holy shit, this is unbelievable. I'm on the other side of the world, and I run into the people I know. And then we walk in, we go to of course, what are you going to do? You go to the red light district at night. So we walk down the red light district, and we're with some other people. One of the guys has a phone, and he gets a phone call. He's like, where are you? We're like, we're outside this bar, the Excalibur. We're looking at the name of the bar. He's like, holy shit, man, we're in the Excalibur. And they were like, right there. So we all ended up meeting together at this bar, and we had a great time. And still we hadn't seen Artie. And this was the second night. So then it was Sunday, and we're getting ready to leave. And all of a sudden, we come walking out of one of the bars, and it was like, I don't know, 10 in the morning, and there was like this big square. And who's right there in the middle of the square but Artie? So we were like, holy shit, Artie, what's up, man? And he's like, yeah, I resigned, I quit and everything. And I'm like, all right, that's it was great, time. So we all took pictures, hugged, said goodbyes. And then the next day I got a call. Hey, set up the camera in the hallway. Artie's coming in. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's coming in. So he ended up, they didn't accept his resignation, and he ended up staying on the job, which was, great because Artie's Artie, man. But we literally saw him for 45 minutes out of 56 hours in Amsterdam.
I didn't know he resigned, actually. I mean, I know he told on the show.
He quit that day. Wow. And he's like, that's it. Because he always said this is going to end badly. And he resigned because he felt, listen, I just went after some guy, his assistant, nonetheless, And he's like, I can't be here, But Howard's like, no, everything's good. We smoothed things out, and, it was all good.
Yeah. So were you part of the creative process at all? Did you go to the meetings? Did you kind of throw out ideas?
Yeah, everybody got to go into the meetings. Everybody, went in and put their input. And you know, you just throw out ideas there, here and there. You know, some of them, you know, so if they like them, they write them down. And, you know, he'll use them. But everybody got a chance to be in on the meeting and everything. One of the favorite things that I had at the meeting was Gary pitched Evel Knievel, and he was already dead for like 3 months. I just thought that was the funniest thing. We're like, oh my God, he just pitched Evel Knievel. He's dead, you know.
I thought you were going to say Gary pitched badly.
No, that happened another time.
Were you at that, by the way? Were you at that thing?
I didn't go to that event. I wasn't there, but I work at the Mets, and I know all the guys, and they all told me when I went to the game that they were like, you know, your buddy was here, and I was like, yeah, I heard, I saw.
Oh God! Well, poor Baba Booey. Did you have any good Baba Booey stories outside of the Evel Knievel? He seemed like seems like a lifer that's just, you know, he's just stuck, but good job and.
Yeah, no, but me and Gary, we were good friends. We were all right. You know, in the beginning, Gary was like, you know, he was the executive producer, and he was like, you know, always busy. So you'd be like, hey, Gary, how you doing? And he kind of went by you. But, you know, after a few years, you know, we became friends, and everything was good. And I don't have a problem with Gary. Great story is just, you know, the pitching story. I mean, it was, you know, he tried, you know, to make that first pitch, and it didn't happen for him. So.
It was hilarious. It was one of my favorite, kind of the last Artie, because that's pretty much Artie ended his time at the end of 2009 there. And that's kind of when I...
yeah, I think it was, around there, around that time.
It's sort of when I stopped kind of listening and watching, because Artie was so important to me to that show that I couldn't even imagine him not being on there. You were around, right, when MARCI comes in? Were you part of that when she does the turnover?
Yeah, that's when it kind of ended. So... MARCI came in, and you know, she kind of took over the show, and then Howard didn't re-sign, and that was it. It was over, you know. And you know, to me, I was just like, all right, it's over. You know, like I worked there for 16 years, and I was like, you know what, this was a great experience. I work in television, man. I had jobs that were supposed to go 3 years, and they went a month. You know, so shit ends. You know, it's gonna happen. So I wasn't really pissed off. I was just kind of like, the only thing I was kind of mad at is that I found out like everybody else on the air. That was the weird thing. It was like, we didn't know what was going to happen. We're like, Doug, what's happening? He's like, I don't know. We don't know. Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, Howard's like, we're not going to do the HowardTv anymore. It's done. And we're like, we all turned around and looked at Doug like, what? And he goes, this is the first I'm hearing about it. And it's true that we all found out together. That's my only bad thing about the show is that's how I found out. It would have been nice to know beforehand because we knew something was happening, but we didn't know if he was going to stream and keep it on the stream, or we didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So it turns out we found out, and that was it. So I was like, all right, that night we got a call or an email. That's it. We got a month left of production, and then it's over. And we did our last month, and which was kind of great too because Metallica had come in, and we went to the Apollo show. And we're like fifth row, and we're watching the Metallica like right in front of our faces. And then they came in 2 days later. It was a Friday night show. They came in on Monday, or maybe a Saturday night show, whatever night it was. And they came in on Monday, and that was kind of cool too because I was talking to the management. I knew some of the guys from the management of Metallica from Q Prime, and when they came in, Gary walks in with a piece of paper, and he's like, here you go, Brian. And the guys from the management from Q Prime went to Metallica, and they all had them sign the set list and gave me the set list.
That's cool.
That was like a great going-away present. I was like, holy shit, a fucking Metallica signed set list from the Apollo, a show that, was a once-in-a-lifetime show. That's so cool. that was pretty cool. That was a good way to go out.
Would you have been a lifer there if you could have? Would you have just stayed as long as the party was going?
Yeah, what are you kidding me? I would cool. I'd still be there if I had to, man. That would have been the deal to still work there. But like I said, man, TV shows end, and you just got to move on and do your next phase, and that's what I did. I freelanced around for a while, and I was at the Yankees, I was at the Mets, I was at Boomer Show, I was doing CNN. And this whole COVID thing knocked everything out of whack, and now there's no work. And like I said, I'm lucky enough to be working, But I got 10 more games as of right now, and then the playoffs are gonna go to a bubble too, and then I'm gonna be out of that. So there's nothing going on for me, after this month.
Well, we'll drink. Let's just drink.
Dude, I've been drinking for 6 months.
So have I. This is my time to say. So I've worked in TV for a long time. I luckily had a full-time job. I was not a freelancer for the last 10 years of my time. I feel so terrible. I mean, I just played golf with buddies of mine who are camera guys for the Cardinals. They run the cameras for Fox Midwest here. And I'm like, what are you doing in October? Like, they have no idea. And it just sucks. Right. Because you think this thing would be over by, you're like, okay, we'll get through the summer, but it just sucks.
Right, and I thought, it wasn't too bad in the beginning because the COVID money, the $600 extra on the unemployment was actually pretty good,
That's what they all said. They're like, this is better than what I would be making.
Right. It was great, because you had money coming in and you really weren't sweating. I'm sweating right now, though, man. It's hot here. But now I'm working and, I do like 3 days here or 2 days, there, depending on the games. And then I'm not filing for unemployment. And then when I do file for unemployment, it's only going to be $500, which is, something, but it's, my bills are way more than $500 a month,
Oh,
so.
Sucks. No, I feel for you. I was trying to in my head coming up, well, how could I help these guys here in St. Louis? I thought of a golf tournament. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything, but it sounded like unemployment was working for them, but we'll have to come up with something for everybody. Last couple things I want to ask you. So you got to get in some fights, right? Like everyone wanted to fight you back in the day because you're a big guy. Has that calmed down a little bit now that you're not out in the public eye as much?
Yeah, no, that's totally calmed down. I mean, like the last time I got into any situation was at a Black Crowes concert. This guy, they did a 2-part show. They did a acoustic and then they did an electric part. So they did the acoustic part and we went out, get some drinks, and then we came back and we're on the floor. You stand on the floor, you stand wherever. So I was actually standing back from where I used to be previously, and I'm in front of this guy, and this guy was like, oh, great, a big guy in front of me. And I'm like, don't worry, buddy, I'm going all the way to the front, So I got another like 5 feet in front of him. Plenty of room between me and him for him to see. And I don't know, man, this guy had it in for me. And he starts like, all of a sudden I feel like stuff hitting me in the back of the head. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I turn around. I'm like, dude, cut the shit, man. This is enough. And he goes, and he just looks at me like, what are you going to do? And he takes a sip of his beer and I just smashed the beer all over him. So now the circle starts, and I'm like, go ahead, it's your move, and he just threw the can at me or the bottle, whatever it was. And no, he didn't do anything. So I turned back around and I said to this guy, dude, do me a favor. Can I stand in front of you? Because if this guy jabs me from behind, I don't want to fucking do that. At least I have a buffer. So he lets me get in front of him and I feel a tap on my shoulder and I turn around like ready to hit somebody. And it's the security. And he's like, you got to go. And I'm like, why? He goes, because he said you started a fight. I'm like, are you taking him out? And he goes, no. I'm like, well, if he's not going, I'm not fucking going. And I turn right back around. And it turns out this other guy was there. Was like, listen, he didn't do a thing, man. This other guy started the whole thing. So they ended up tossing the other guy, and I got to stay at the show. And I'm like, thank you. Finally, something got right. Like I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just standing at a concert. And I'm getting, shit thrown at me. So it worked out in my favor. And then as a favor to the guy who stuck up for me, we went to Ric's Cabaret that night and we saw Ronnie. And, he got to get the Stern Show treatment at Ric's for the night, and he was pretty happy about that. So that worked out in his favor.
I was going to say, how many times did you get the Howard treatment at Scores/Ric's?
Dude, every time you went. I mean, it wasn't even at Ric's. It was anywhere. Like, even in Vegas, if you had a Howard Stern credential, every door opened up for you. Even if it was like a guy's arm that was like at a craps table. It's like, no, you're not allowed to go. Yeah, go ahead. You can go. Like it was like the key to the city having that credential. But yeah, I mean, I didn't use his name like Hy Pajaric would, but I did, when I went out and I was with the crew, we all got royal treatment, and it felt good. It felt fucking real good. It was nice.
Who pissed you off on the show? Not someone maybe who worked there, but every time you're like, that guy's an asshole.
High Pitch Eric. High Pitch Eric annoyed me the shit out of me because, like, I worked for the show and I didn't use, like I said, I didn't use Howard's name like he would. And then, like, we were at one concert, like, K-Rock used to have these awesome concerts. They were called Dysfunctional Family Picnics, DFPs. And we would go around, and he's always like a scam artist, trying to get in here and there and everywhere. And he followed me around all day. We'd go to see the show, and then we go back into the VIP tent to drink and get something to eat, and then we go back out. And he was trying to like get me to get him into the VIP tent. And I'm like, dude, if you're not in here, if you don't have a credential, I'm not getting you. Like, who am I, number one, to get you in? And number two is, who are you to get in here? I know, but you're a listener. You know, like, you don't the show, you just listen and you're an idiot, you know? So, and it's funny because everybody's like, oh, you know, don't be so mean to him. He's not an idiot. I'm like, you watch his first appearance, and that guy's a normal fucking dude on the air. And then he realized he acted like a retard. He fucking, I shouldn't say retard, right? If he acted stupid, then he'd get, you know, his, you know, whatever. People feel for whatever. And that's what he is. To me, he's a scam artist. And he was the one I didn't like the most out of any of them. But everybody else was great. That whole show, man, everybody was just out there to have a good time and enjoy. I mean, listen, we busted our ass, we worked hard, and we were true loyal soldiers. But you know, but we got great perks in the end. You know, the concerts, the movie premieres. You know, just to going out and hanging out with, you know, the celebrities coming up and meeting us and knowing us. Like, dude, celebrities knew me. Sam Simon came up to me and said hello to me in Vegas. And I'm like, just Sam Simon. He goes, yeah, I know who, you know, you're Brian Phelan. I'm like, you know me? Like, I was like stunned that people knew who I was.
You guys, I mean, and lastly, do you keep in touch with the Dougs and the DePaces and the Gregs, all the guys you hear them?
Yeah, I talked to Doug and Ganji a few times, Ronnie, JD. I talked to Shuli, Sal and Richard are great. I love those guys. The TV side, not so much too many people. You know, like I said, Doug and Ganji. You know, I'll be at a game. You know, I'll be working the game, and I'll get a text from some of the guys on the crew. You know, hey, I'm at the game, and I'll put them up on the scoreboard, and they get a kick out of that. Greg Carmel. The great Greg Carmel was at a game a few years ago doing the robot. It was very funny. But other than that, we don't really hang out too much. Shuli will come and do a comedy show in Ronnie or whatever at a local club by me, and I'll go see them, and you know, we hang out and reminisce. And it's funny too because I saw Sal did a show. He did where he does singing. He sings and does comedy with this guy Billy Mira, who used to do voices on the show. And I went, it was a Valentine's Day show. So I went with my wife and we got to hang out with a bunch of the people. And there was a lot of new people that are on the show who I don't know. And they got to meet me and we hung out. We had a good time. And then I heard from Will a couple of weeks later and he's like, oh yeah, sorry I didn't make that show. You know, I got a kid and everything now. And he goes, but you know, the new guys were all impressed that they hung out with the Brian Phelan. And I was like, you know, like I got like legendary status, I guess, you know, and I was kind of, you know, happy about that.
You do. Like I said, I mean, I when I started kind of reliving the past and thinking about some of the people, I'm like, where's Brian? I got to find Brian. There you were out on Twitter. Wow. So
yeah, it's funny because when I saw your tweet, I was like, you know, I don't know, because people ask me to do that, you know, every so often. And one lady, you know, was like, oh, I want to talk about how the show changed and the rise of MARCI TURK and all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm not here to bash the show, man. I'm here to have a good time, you know? So I never got back to her. And then when you sent me the Doug interview, I watched it. I'm like, all right, yeah, this sounds like fun. So,
yeah. Doug was very helpful in kind of orchestrating some of these, so I appreciate it. Is there anything that I missed, Brian? I had a whole list here. I think I got through all of them.
You got through your list? Let me see my list.
What did you have? Oh, you had a list. I didn't even know you did.
I had just like bullet points of what, you know, like you said, good, you know, good times and stuff like that. I think I hit most of my stuff too. One of the cooler things for me personally as a father, we went to an AGT taping and we sat like kind of back, which was fine. You know, it was at Radio City close. And I'm with my kids and they were young at the time. They were probably, the youngest was like probably 7 or 8. And the oldest was probably 13. And, it was a long show. It was 2 hours, and my kids, you know, they were tired, so they wanted to leave. So at like 10:30, I go to leave, and I see Howard's makeup hair stylist, Tony Colburn, great woman. And I say, listen, do me a favor, when you go down, just hold on, my dog's freaking out. Just go down and just point Ronnie to me. I just want to say goodbye to him. And she goes, just come down. So I'm like, okay. So as I walk down, Howard turns around and he sees me with my kids. He's like, whoa, come here, get him up here. And he brought all three of my kids up in the commercial break, and he had them hit the buzzer. And it was loud. It was like, whoa, you know. And, like, here I am in front of, I don't know, 5,000 people at Radio City, and he's calling me out, my kids, to bang the buzzer. And what was funny was the guy behind me was giving me shit because every commercial break, the seats are tight. I'm tall, so I get up and stretch out. He's like, I'm not here to see your back, man. I'm here to see the show. I'm like, oh, yeah, because you want to see the guy sweeping the floor in the commercial break? Okay, good luck with that. So as I walk out, I walk past that guy, and he's looking at me like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I was able to go up, and Howard did that for me. And I was like, that was pretty damn cool. And then, you know, Tony took a couple pictures and sent them to me. And my kids, they knew, their teachers all knew, you know, who I was, and they were big fans. So I give them the pictures, and they show, you know, their teachers the pictures of them with Howard hitting the buzzer and everything. And they were even like, wow, holy shit. Like, you know, Howard called you guys, like, Howard knows who you guys are, my kids, you know? So that was pretty impressive too, man.
That's a good story to end on. It's good to hear that he still kind of remembers some of these people that worked for him all these years. That's really cool.
Yeah, he's a great guy, man. I don't have a bad word to say about him, man. The guy hooked me up for 16 years with a job, even longer than that, you know? And like I said, I understand what happened. You know, the deal didn't go through, and you time to move on. So that's what happened. But that's it.
This was fun. I do some traveling for baseball, so you never know. I haven't been to Yankee Stadium, the new one, yet. I haven't been to Citi Field either. But if I do find myself getting back on a plane, hopefully getting out to New York, I'm coming to Yankee Stadium. I'm coming up to the scoreboard room. And we're going to check.
I'll be there. I'll be at the scoreboard department. Yeah, So
we'll come find.
Good. I'd like to meet you personally.
We'll come find Brian. Thank you, Brian. That'll do it for Here's the Pitch. STLMasses.com. Masses Restaurants, the title sponsor of the show. STLMasses.com is the website to find their menus and their directions to their locations. You'll love it. Go there. I thank Brian, and we'll see you next time.